Welcome to the Irishman, Englishman and Scotsman Football Podcast. Hello, good evening and welcome to another episode of the Irishman, Englishman and Scotsman Football Podcast. Tonight, we kick off a whole new, brand new segment of the podcast, and it's called Away Day Confessions, where we ask football fans 3 questions from their away day experiences. Pretty simple: their favorite away venue, their least favorite away venue, and their juicy away day confession story. Of course, we're kicking off with the best fans in the world, the Irish fans, for our first ever episode of this segment. We're going to start with our Donegal man in Deutschland. Edo, how you doing?
Not so bad, JP.
Good. Right, Edo, I'm sure you have studied your answers all day. So what's your favourite away venue at an Ireland game?
I'll have to say Poznan for the Euros in 2012 was unbelievable. Okay, the football wasn't the best, of course, but the whole trip, the whole city, the people there they were just so friendly and very welcoming, and just had a great time there.
Yeah, Poznan was great crack, all right.
But it was brilliant. So it was great weather as well. So
least favourite away venue, Edo?
Well, I have to say Gelsenkirchen wasn't the best place to go to, even though there was mixed feelings because the result was unbelievable. The injury time equaliser by John O'Shea was just fantastic, and but the town itself, or the city itself, wasn't my favourite city to go to. So if I'd be a bit hesitant to go again if Ireland played Germany there.
I have to agree with you 100%. And your away day story, your away day confession?
Oh, it wouldn't be the away day. It'd be maybe the day before the match. We were playing Gibraltar in
Faro.
Faro, yeah, in Faro, and I flew into Faro from Munich, and I was supposed to get a transfer to Albufeira, and the guy said, "Oh, we have to wait. You have to wait an hour for the next guy to come in, the next flight." And I was going, "Oh, come on! I've got friends waiting for me in Albufeira." But then the Irish team came in, so about half an hour later, so I was there waiting. Next thing, the Irish team came in, and I was wearing my Finn Harps jersey, and got to meet the Shay Given and Seamus Coleman and everything, and Martin O'Neill. So it worked out well that I had to wait that hour longer. So I was able to meet the players. So especially the Donegal men, of course.
Wow, brilliant! Actually, meet the players before. I mean, I've only met them, in a team hotel before, but yeah, I believe Seamus Coleman's supposed to be a lovely chap.
Oh yeah, he is. First thing he said to me, "Oh, you're a Finn Harps fan?" I go, "Oh yeah, I am, yeah." Even though he played for Sligo Rovers, but I won't hold that against him. Good
stuff, Edo. Now we put Edo up first tonight because he's more worried about missing the Liverpool game, showing his priorities. Next up, this man needs no introduction, or maybe he does. He's organised more football trips than Abbey Travel. He goes from Dutch to Dublin in 2 seconds. It's Amsterdam Steve. How are you doing, Steve?
It's good to see everyone. Good to talk to everyone. It's been a while. Obviously it's been a strange year, yourself included in the pub trade. It's a challenging year as publican and as drinker, as I'm sure many lads will attest to. But we're all here, and I can't wait for the next trip.
Yeah, Steve. I mean, I think nearly every Ireland fan going away, a percentage of them would stop up in Amsterdam and head into Molly Malone's.
We do. I mean, Frank was there after Bosnia, after he missed his flight. Remember Frank?
I do.
No, thankfully, we I thought I left everyone behind, and as soon as I come into Molly, you're sitting there. You beat me to it. You were there before I got back.
I was, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, no, it's been great having everyone in over the years. As of course, it is a very central point in Europe, which is fantastic. And I think over the years, it's had its great nights, and we'll have more again. It's just, well, unfortunately, the pubs are still closed. The problem we all suffer from every day. But look, we'll get there as soon as we get this virus over and done with.
What's your favorite away venue for an Ireland match? You've been to plenty.
My favorites are always the more kind of run down, concrete, raggedy kind of stadiums where I don't really like the new ones. So in terms of the favorites, I was really happy to be in the Red Star Stadium in Belgrade.
Yeah.
Just from the history it has as a European. I mean, Serbia, of course, is a football nation. Red Star Belgrade, early 90s, late 80s, as a top European club. Obviously, it's fallen down the rankings a bit, but just a historic stadium. That would be my favorite to actually go to. The old rundown stadiums, the likes of Georgia, the likes of Slovakia, or Armenia, or what else, Moldova. But I'd say for me, Red Star was great because you got Partizan just up the road, you got all the graffiti. It just breeds football.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to be in it a few times myself. It's definitely got a history and a vibe about it. All right.
Other than that, it has nothing else going for it. I realize it's a shithole. Other than that, but I mean, it's the idea of you're in a stadium that actually has witnessed all this historic matches. Was not supposed to say that. Sorry.
You're grand. You can say whatever you want, Steve. No worries. Right. Your least favorite away venue?
I would have to agree with Ado there in that Gelsenkirchen was a very challenging away game because there just wasn't much there. But, to keep it all interesting and not go for the exact same ones as we had before, I'd go for the number 2 on my list. It would have to be just for the sheer fact that we were there that often, Cardiff. It just, I don't know, it hasn't got much going, and we're back. And I realize that's something that's it's probably because we did it often. We had some great results. We had the result, of course, with the win, which was fantastic. Ever since then, I don't know. I had Gelsenkirchen on my list, but Ado beat me to it.
Yeah, it was on my list as well.
Was it? Yeah,
yeah, it was. Yeah.
There's honourable mentions to Paris. I mean, as much as I love the city of Paris, to make your way all the way out to the Stade de France is a fair old trek. But of course, it will always live in infamy with the 2009 playoff. Which we all know and hate and wake up screaming from. It's one of those things that as much as I enjoy Paris, we'll never forget that night.
So your away day story?
Oh, well, again, I mean, there's so many fun stories, which all make a lot more sense and are a lot more enjoyable when you're in the pub together and talking about them. But of course, this is the closest thing we get to right now. As far as away day stories, I think the best one and the most bizarre day that I always found in terms of away days was Barry in 2000, and the 1st of April it was. Back in the day, I remember, well, it's not back in the day, it's 12 years ago, but of course there was a doubt whether it was going to be Rome or whether it was going to be a different city in Italy. And of course, the infamous words of Tough Paddy on the Why Big Forum at the time were him as a Sky News correspondent, were it's definitely Rome. So everyone booked to go to Rome. And of course, they moved the game to Bari, which of course frantically meant that we all had to make our way from Rome to Bari, which wasn't a bad journey. I think, if I remember well, it was about 4 hours in the train. There was no disco train, but we had our own train, the Trenitalia. And it was a nice trip to go down to. Going to Bari was fun, but then arriving in Bari, all the locals kept saying there's no alcohol, there's nothing allowed, the city has been put dry. And then, of course, to come into the city centre, onto the main square in Bari, and again, all the bars were shut, the restaurants were shut, there was just nothing you could, as it looked, to get in terms of a drink, which, of course, enhances the atmosphere. We're not there for the drink, but it does enhance the atmosphere. And then to find out on the match day that it was absolutely loads of young 12-year-old, 13-year-old Italian boys running around with all sorts of, they had these big skips filled with ice and all the beer you could actually want to buy. And it saved us a bundle. And it was only in Italy that this could happen. I mean, any other country, you just know it's not going to happen. And then as we're going to the stadium after a full day of drinking in the square, there was we went into an ice cream parlor. and asked if he knew anywhere you can get a drink. And so he led us down the stairs into this big freezer room where he would normally, of course, have all his ice creams. And he had a load of boxes of beers. So we brought some boxes of beers, had to take the back door exit because the police wasn't allowed to see us. Make our way to the stadium with all our fresh new beers, find out we have to hand them in. And then you come into the stadium, and again, there's all these little kids running around, which is the chaos of Italy. Anything goes as long as you pay off the right man. And then the result itself, I mean, it was Trapattoni's first return to Italy as our coach, him as a legend there. And we got the result. We got a draw. It was just, it was an old stadium, the San Nicola. It just, for me, it's my favorite trip of all years, Bari in 2009. It just, so no, not perhaps a mad anecdote, but just what I found was you wouldn't find it ever again. It could only happen in Italy, and in a way, it was perhaps reminiscent of the old stories you would find and hear of the gents that went to Italy in '90. You know, the just chaotic nature of the Italians, but also very good-natured people. Love it over there.
Good stuff, Steve. The next man his flag is famous. His flag has been to more European countries than Aer Lingus. It's Franco Varese. Franco, how you doing?
Not too bad, JP. Glad to have me.
Right, Franco, you've been around a long time. You've been to more games probably than all of us put together. What's your favourite away venue?
I have a few good ones. Steve's Amsterdam, of course, yeah. Stuttgart brings back great memories. I was there at Euro 88, the famous 1-0 against England. I was there in 2006. It was the first game after the World Cup in Germany, and there was about 20,000 plus of us in Stuttgart. Thought it was a great city, like Munich as well. I like Germany for matches like Holland and Germany, so they would be my favourite ones. But Stuttgart, because of what it was in Euro 88, it was a warm day. After being on a bus trip from Dublin to Rosslare to Le Havre, and from Le Havre all the way to a little village in Germany called Ludenscheid. 2 days on the beer and then down to Stuttgart for the game. So it'll stick in my memory for the rest of my life.
Deadly. And least favourite place, least favourite venue, Franco?
I think we all agree on this, but I see a few heads nodding. Cardiff is a kip.
Yeah.
Absolute kip. And it's full of Welsh.
Right. No description needed there. And you must have a deadly story for us, Franco.
I have a few ones. I was just reminiscing there with Steve was talking about matches in Italy. I went to Italia 90, and I remember being on it was actually the first game was against England. England was against Sardinia, as you know. Chaos at that game. Next game was against Egypt. There was a drinks ban, nothing. And the third match was against the Dutch. And like that, as Steve said, you couldn't get any gargle. And we spotted a fella walking up the beach with two of these big, massive, like they carry the buckets, the ice buckets full of 7-Up and all that. So we went up and we said, any chance of getting a few beers? And your man said, nah, no beer. The Carabinieri now. So with that, one of the lads took a wad of, what's it called?
Lira.
The old Lira, that was pocket. Goes up, he says, right, he says, come back and fill them up with drink. So your man proceeded, I think it's called Mondeo Beach in Palermo. It's just outside Palermo. So your man trekked off up. Gonna miss him for ages. He said he's out there legging with all the money. Actually, he's coming down, he's like one of those mules for Sister Sarah coming down like this down the beach. So he runs up with a load of gargle, right? So he said, you must hide it. So there's a load of kids. So we robbed their buckets and spades. We dug this big, huge water trench out in the middle of the beach, right? So we fellas chucking all the sand into the water, right? Another fella bringing the bucket of water from the sea and fill it up. So with a big moat, all the gargle in it. And with that, we sent your man back up and we said, have you any friends? And he says, yes, I have friends. Well, get your friends to come down with more of these, the ice buckets. So it's like a mule train. About 8 of them came down, right? Drinks bad against the Dutch in about 38 degrees of heat down the beach, right? All you hear says, fill it with water, lads. More cold water, right? There's a skip behind us. They have to fill it. They have to empty it twice. There was that much gargle with cans and bottles in it, right? And the police came by talking to us, and we were obviously trying to keep them at bay. So that was the funniest, like Steve said. And the only other one that I can very short one was, if you remember, we had a playoff against Estonia. Do you remember that game we played in 2011?
4-0.
And all the ticket scandal. Well, they were all queuing outside, and we figured out the PDA took 2.5 minutes to get through. So we put all the tickets in coins and we're throwing them off the top of the stadium to all the lads outside. So somebody found a claw hammer. Don't ask me why. They were renovating that stadium, threw it down, and there was these big, if any of you were at the game, there was big steel barriers with mesh net, like you see in the building site, right beside the what do you call it, the turnstiles. So one of the lads clawed all the mesh off. About 50 of them got into the match for free. And all the stewards were like,
Right, moving on. Next up, we have the Kildare man in Tyrone, Shane Bowl. How are we doing?
Yeah, good. Cheers, JP.
Good to hear from you, Shane. Been to a lot of games with you. What's your favorite away venue?
It's probably a little bit out of left field. It's not involving a major tournament, but it was definitely Vienna away in November 2016. The qualifier for the ill-fated qualifier, as it turns out, for the 2018 World Cup. But Vienna is one of the great cities of Europe anyway, and certainly the Ernst Happel Stadium is one of. I think myself and Brian Freeman definitely have the same opinion that it's the away trip that all the others will be measured by, just in terms of the crack that we had, and the result as well. McLean's goal was an absolutely top class goal from start to finish. It was one of the rare occasions where an Ireland team broke a pace on a counter attack from an opposition attacking at the edge of our box, and then McLean took away the goal. Just one of the great away goals. I think one of the underrated away goals of probably certainly of Ireland's away games in the last 20 years. Probably could be the best away goal of the O'Neill era, in my opinion. So it always has kind of a nice place in my heart, that trip to Vienna in 2016.
Right. I remember it was David Myler right back. Had a great ball to Houlihan midfield, who released McLean, who banged it in. And your least favourite away venue? There seems to be two popular ones, but
I'm going to echo the legend. I mean, as well as how do you follow talking on these things after the legend that is Franco Baresi, being in Stuttgart and the Italian 90. But I'm going to echo what he said. I'm going to echo what Steve's said as well. Cardiff is just awful. The city centre itself is okay. It's quite compact and walkable and everything, but just the Cardiff City Stadium it's about a 50-minute walk outside the city centre. When you have a perfectly good stadium in the middle of the city, you've got the Principality Stadium, which I've been to for Heineken Cup finals, and it was great crack. And I've been to Cardiff a few times. I went. My one and only fans game participation was in Cardiff for a friendly in August 2013. And we turned up thinking we were playing an all-weather pitch for our first ever, myself and my brother, for our first ever away game with the Ireland fans. Turns out we were playing on this sodden bog of a pitch, and we were both wearing AstroTurf runners. We lasted about 2 minutes. The game itself was shite, 0-0 draw. And we've had good memories then the second time, but again, another McLean winner away. But it's a rough city. It's not nice. You have too far to walk out to Cardiff City Stadium itself, and too far to walk back in then. And I would say Tbilisi just after, I know some lads might talk about this, but Tbilisi, in terms of getting gastroenteritis from some dodgy burgers, has a place as well in my memories. So I'd say Cardiff, though, just pips it for least favourite city.
Right, and your away day story, you must have a few juicy ones.
Well, nothing too salacious, and certainly nothing as interesting as Steve's Barry story and Franco's Palermo story. But and again, it goes back to Vienna in 2016 away, because I had mitched off work to go to it. Myself and Brian Freeman had gone over, but I had mitched off, pulled a sickie, flown to Salzburg, stayed with yourself, and then took a great train trip to Vienna for the game. And then it led to one of the great actually pictures of us all on that train journey, which we took over the train. One car
ended up on the Daily Star.
Yeah, but it was misrepresented as the flight to Copenhagen for the playoff for the World Cup. But again, I'm in that picture, but I'm hidden behind Brian Freeman for fear of being tagged on Facebook and getting caught mitching off work for that trip. And then I have another one. It's not Ireland related, but I mitched off work to go to 2006 World Cup, the group stage match, South Korea versus Togo. And I tried to go as incognito as possible. I wore shades and a bucket hat to sit in because I thought I'd be sitting in with the Togolese fans, and I didn't want to be caught on telly with this pasty-faced Irishman and among all these Central African fans. So I wore a bucket hat and a pair of glasses to sit incognito at that game. I mean, it was all right, but that was kind of another memory of me mitching off work to go to these games.
Good stuff. The recently married Brian Freeman must be itching to get to an away game. What's your favorite away venue, buddy?
Evening, JP. My favorite away venue, I would say, just thinking about it, I'd probably go for Gdansk, which was one of the venues for the 2012 Euros. So at that stage in the 2012, it had been 10 years since we've been to major tournaments. I was too young to go to South Korea and Japan in 2002. So this is my big moment. And essentially the group stage was, I think we had 2 games in Poznan in Poland, and then sandwiched in the middle was a nice little trip to Gdansk to play, God, I can't even remember, Italy.
Spain and Gdansk.
Spain. And didn't know much about Gdansk, but it really turned out to be a really nice spot. It's it nearly feels, the city nearly felt like something in Central Europe, like a Prague or something, but it's actually up beside the Baltic Sea. So it's beautiful architecture. Just a really nice weather because it was in the middle of the summer. Really nice people, and it's such a nice place to be. We obviously got tonked by Spain, but that was nearly expected anyway. Even for myself and two other guys, it was very hard to get accommodation in Gdansk. It was a lot harder than, say, Poznan. So we actually lodged with a Polish family for a week.
Jesus.
So it was actually really good crack. They had an older son, Michael was his name. I'd say he was probably about 21 or something, and every single day Michael would come to us and say, do you want to play a game of football with me and my friends? And we'd already heard that Michael was a semi-professional player in Poland, and we were going out getting absolutely destroyed every night, so we had no interest in playing football against these guys. So every day it was like, maybe tomorrow, a little bit tired today, but we'll do it tomorrow. But it was really nice to stay. It was kind of just a little taste of what it's like to live as a local, I suppose. It just kind of they had a little kitchen for us and a little area, but we got to have a few chats with them as well, and it was just nice to see. It was kind of like a little housing estate in Sopot, which is just outside kind of Gdansk as well. It was really, really nice. So it's a really, really good experience there. At the time, I probably don't anymore, but back in the day, I used to look a lot like John O'Shea, and I remember on the main street in Gdansk,
You still do a bit, man.
you know,
You've probably got more hair than
with
John
the beard
O'Shea
down,
these
maybe
days,
less
yeah.
so. But I remember at one stage in the main street of Gdansk being carried shoulder high and people cheering John O'Shea and pointing at me. So that was probably a highlight as well.
Yeah, Gdansk
So
was.
good experience.
I reckon though, Brian, your accommodation was a lot better than mine in Gdansk. I'll talk about that later on. No, cracking city, Gdansk. I'll definitely go back there. I'm with you on that one. Your least favorite away venue?
Yeah, I had to think a lot about this one because, even when you do go to a kind of a place that isn't so nice, it's always a good experience where you're an Ireland fan anyway. You can just have the crack. So I kind of went for something which don't lynch me now, but it's actually Scotland and Celtic Park. It was mainly because of the experience of the day. So it was a European Championship qualifier. I think it was for Euro 2016, and it was
Sean
quite
Maloney,
an important. Yeah, it was quite an important game. There was a lot of before the game. There was a lot of controversy, I suppose, about the ticketing situation. So essentially, hardly anyone got tickets, and all of John Delaney and his mates got the tickets. All of us who were go to every away game. Didn't get any. So what did we do? Of course, we went onto the Scottish FA website and then got as many tickets as we could. So we were lodged into the home end of the stadium, and it was just an awful day all around, especially, well, personally for me, just because I had to go down and collect the tickets for everyone. Couldn't get a taxi. I'd say it took 2 hours round trip walking to Celtic Park, get the tickets, then go back to the pub, then walk back again, and then it was just a nightmare getting into that stadium. I haven't been to any Celtic games or anything, but it was a nightmare to get in on that day. We were late getting in, and then of course we got stung by Sean Maloney in the 80th minute as well, and we lost 1-0. And then it just kind of, it puts a dampener on the night when you've had such a bad day. And I remember wrapping up the night by gone into a chipper and getting a battered pizza as my dinner. I was like, yeah, that's how you finish Scotland. Yeah.
Yeah, and you've been to a fair few games, Brian. You must have a juicy story for us.
Yeah, I suppose I'm going to have to go for Tbilisi, Georgia. So it's probably a few people that have been on that, or that were on that trip, that are here. So it's basically in the middle of nowhere. I remember looking on the map at the time we were going and saying, if you look at the map and you go a bit north or south, I can't remember, but it's actually as far away as Iraq from Ireland. 3 flights in the middle of the night. The second flight, I think, went to Istanbul, and we ended up having a free bar for a couple of hours while we waited for we waited for the third flight. So that wasn't so bad at all. We were happy enough with that. And then when you get there, it's quite the infrastructure isn't what you get in Europe. Like it's a fairly poor enough country in terms of infrastructure, and I suppose it's not great to be walking around. There's not a whole lot of things to see. The people are very nice. I suppose the big bonus is everything was dirt cheap. So I think you get a beer for about 50 cents over there. So with no problem spending you can spend €100. I'd say you could be there for a couple of months there, on booze. So it was great for that, and it's also because it's so different. Everything is an experience, really. So I remember we went on a bus tour. I'd say it was the oldest. I said it nearly should have been pedals on the bus. I'd say it was scraping along the roads. A few nice things to see. I remember getting a taxi a couple of times. I remember yourself was with us as well, being the multilinguist. I'm chatting away in Russian to the taxi driver in the front. He didn't know what was going on. Red-headed Irish fella talking to him in Russian. I think you did the same in Georgian TV as well. They didn't know what was going on. That was a good laugh. The food probably wasn't the best now. So I remember we had a couple of meals which were just all right. And then I think this one night specifically, I remember actually thinking that we'll just see if there's a McDonald's around, just get something that we know. And I remember we looked at and went on Google Maps, and it was like a half an hour's drive. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. Couldn't be bothered doing that. So we went into a restaurant, I'd say, in inverted commas, and seemed to have kind of pub grub kind of stuff. So I think we went for a burger with sweet potato fries or something, and some sort of side. And everyone did something similar. And what rolls out, what I do remember as well is I'd say we were waiting at least an hour. We were absolutely ravenous and just dying to get on the booze. And I'd say at least an hour later, possibly an hour and a half, what comes out? A Big Mac on a plate with nothing else on it. Just one plate with a Big Mac on it. And I remember calling the waitress back and saying, "This is a Big Mac. Like we're not. We have these too." I said, "No,
We're in a bar or
no.
a restaurant, yeah."
So they basically taken the McDonald's meal and just thrown it on the plate and charged us maybe double the price, but because we didn't care because it was so cheap. Talking of delicacies, I suppose Shane mentioned earlier on that one of the guys had a bad experience with a chicken sandwich in an Irish bar. And
what was the Irish bar called in Tbilisi? It wasn't the Hangover,
Bar.
was it? The Hanger.
Hangar bar, I think. Yeah. Hopefully they're not listening to this, JP. Won't be too happy with you. So yeah, you had a bad situation with chicken sandwich there. I think it just started after. So essentially the match itself, which is, you kind of forget about it sometimes, wasn't a great game, but Aidan McGeady pulled it out of the bag and got a last-minute winner for us, an absolute screamer, and we were behind the goal, so we went pretty wild for that. After that, a few hours later, this guy, he starts, there's a rumbling in his tummy and everywhere else, and he's really in a bad way. So we're all due to go home the next day. He was so bad, he couldn't leave the toilet basically. So I decided to stay with him. So a few others were gone home, and we missed our flight essentially. At the time, I discovered at the time that you can't actually book a flight. If you're flying somewhere the next day, they won't let you book it on Skyscanner or anything else like that. You do have to actually call up places. So we went down to a local travel agents in Tbilisi, and trying to book a flight. And my God, I'd say it took about 3 hours. Everything seems to be in slow motion, but then the other thing is that the flights are so expensive to get a flight that far. You have to get about 3 flights back. That it's going to cost you a fortune as well. So they're a fairly poor country, as I said, and our flights, we needed to get back as soon as possible. So that was 2 days time, I think. So I think the flights were going to be, I think it was close to €1,500 each or something.
Jesus.
Which I remember, at the time, the average wage there is about €500 for a month. They're insistent on it, saying, are you sure you don't want to go in a week's time, because it's a lot cheaper? No, we need to go in a couple of days. And then we discovered that they wanted to be paid in cash as well, so we had to go out into the ATM and take out $3,000 in cash. It took about half an hour just going from ATM to ATM. Come back, it's a lot of money for them. So as I said about the average wage, so we had on the table streams and streams of Georgian bills. And we were looking around going, oh my God, if someone comes in here and robs this place, and I have to see the amount of money laid out on the table. It was taking them so long that they were taking so long to count it and do everything, and they weren't telling us anything. So two of us were sweating there, hoping that we eventually get it done. So eventually got it done anyway, and we ended up getting out of there. And the flight back wasn't fun either, because at the time there was it was a time that Russia were kind of at war with Ukraine, I suppose. So Crimea was a no-fly zone. So of course we had to fly with Ukrainian Airways because they were the cheapest ones. So we had to do a stop off over in Kiev on the way back. But we made it home eventually. So yeah, that was an interesting trip anyway.
Yeah, the burger story will live on forever. I'll just quickly run in myself now, lads. My favorite away would have to be Belgrade, and I'm going to go for 2012. Ireland played there just after the Euros in Poland, and we only had 54 fans at the game. We drove from Austria through to Slovenia into Croatia, another border stop at Serbia. Now, Korea from the FAI sent me a letter with the tickets, the tickets in it, because there was only 55 fans. It wasn't like a big thing. But the Serbians thought we'd bring a lot of fans, because we brought 40,000 to the Euros in Poland. We only brought 50 to Serbia. But we got to the border anyway, and the Serbian guy checks us, and I was wearing this beautiful Ireland polo that they released for the Euros in 2012, kind of white and green and yellow stripe, and beautiful yoke it was. So I had that anyway. Your man came out, the Serbian police officer at the border, and he said, "You're going to the game, yes?" And I said, "Yeah." And I showed him the letter, and he seen the polo, and he said, "Oh, you're with the association. Do you want the convoy?" I said, "Yeah, sure, no problem, buddy." So the guy driving the car was from Galway, and he was absolutely dying with a hangover. He was drinking cider at 4 o'clock in the morning. And then we had a few other Irish lads on the car. Went it down to Belgrade, and the police were everywhere. They're watching us everywhere. They were in the steakhouse, everywhere else. And then they said, "Okay, we went to the Irish bar. It's called the Three Carrots." And they said, "Now we give you a police convoy to stadium." It was like something out of Rocky IV. You're in the back of this taxi. There's cars everywhere. You can see all these fans going mental. And then, like all these RoboCops, thousands of screaming Serbian fans, and the 50 Irish, 54, going into this bloody ground. The game was absolutely shite. 0-0, terrible match. And then they said to us, "Look, you have to go home and change your shirts. Don't wear the jerseys. You have to go back to your hotel." So back to the hotel. The hotel was dead, like big pool and a whole lot, 30 quid a night. So we went back down to the Three Carrots bar, and just before midnight, the cops came in again, and they said, "Look, you're going to have to go home. We're closing." And then one Dublin outlet, he's always at the game, hangs around with your man that beats the drum, and he ran out and he said, "There's a beer festival on at 5 o'clock in the morning." Everyone's going, "Hey!" The coppers, in fairness to them, the Serbian police officers, went with us, plain clothes, to the beer festival. There was a Prodigy tribute band on. All the pints were €1, burgers, everything. Rocked the place till 5 o'clock in the morning. Absolute class. Loved the trip. And then again, we went to 2016, like Steve was saying, Red Star Stadium again. The only thing, the thing that sticks out about that is a lake in the middle of Belgrade, and it's called Ada Cigala. And we're all sitting there drinking €1 pints. There's a barbecue on. All these mots are getting out of the lake after swimming. And you're just sitting there going, this is what the life. And then out of nowhere, we seen these 4 lads coming, white as the driven snow, with socks and sandals. And somebody said, "I bet them lads are from Mayo." So as they got closer, we said, "Where are you from, lads?" And he said, "Castlebar High." And then a big chant ran out, and they said, "Mayo lads, wear sandals and socks." That was my memory of Belgrade. The worst one I've been was Budapest. Budapest, even though my stag was there, great city. We played there in a friendly just before Euro 2012. Played the fans match, scored the goal to put us 6-0 up. Took myself off. Steve Murphy came on, drunk, and went to take a throw. And the ball went out, over the sideline. And he put his head down to pick up the ball, but it was barbed wire, and it sliced his forehead right open. It was a massive gash. So we spent the next 2 hours going through 4 different hospitals trying to find someone that, to speak English. Got him patched up, got him stitches, went to the game. The game was absolutely shit. 0-0, rained all night. After the fans match, I went to this place. Remember this name. It's called Pizza King in Budapest. And I got a chicken schnitzel because I was starving. We're supposed to go for a steak meal, but we'd no time because of Steve Murphy cutting his head open. So I banged down the schnitzel. Anyway, I drove back to Austria the next day, just getting into Salzburg. Boom, my stomach starts rumbling. Got back to my gaff and collapsed on the floor. And then went to hospital, and basically I had a massive bowel infection. Kept me in there for 2 nights. Said you shouldn't be going to Poland after planning the Euros for 6 months. So I was dying for the first few days in Poland. So Budapest for me, yeah. And then my story has to be about Gdansk. A lot of us went up, drove to Gdansk. And we stayed in Gdansk for the whole 11 days. So we basically stayed in Gdansk, got the train to Poznan, watched the game, and then came back after the Croatia game. One of the guys came. He's not a big football fan. He was not a guy that really would be on his own a lot. And he only kind of started worried then, that he's going to be on his own in the campsite in Camping Stogie in Sopot for the night when the rest of us went down to Poznan and came back on the train. So basically, yeah, long story short, we got back at 7 a.m. and there he was standing in the campsite, and he was staggering, and he had a brown shoe on and a black shoe on, and he was kind of foaming at the mouth. He wasn't able to speak, and he was going, we said, "Are you okay, man?" And he was pointing at his tent. We thought like someone's robbed his tent or something wrong with his tent. But one of the lads went over to the tent anyway, expected to see what happened. And this big gothic Polish bird, bollocks naked, jumps out of his tent. So he'd been down to town, got smashed in all the Irish pubs and brought a bird back. So that was my story. Okay, our Cork man in Dublin, Liam, what's your favourite away venue?
Yeah, so I had a good think about this over the last kind of 24 hours, JP, since you asked the question. And I was trying to think of criteria to define great away venue, great away stadium. And for me, obviously, number one, the first thing I would say is of everywhere I've been, I don't think there's been a bad place to go. So it goes, favourite to least favourite rather than a worst away trip, because there's no such thing as a bad away trip. And they all have their moments. But for me, top criteria is obviously the match, the atmosphere that builds up around it, things like ease of travel, whether it's a nice city to get round. So absolute standout from my experiences so far have to be Paris. I know a lot of people have a lot of bad memories of Paris because of that Henri handball in 2009, but I think everybody still loves the city. You've got a stadium in the Stade de France that's purpose built for a World Cup final in '98. So for me, a great stadium that is easy to get tickets for, because we've all been to plenty of away matches where the tickets are scarce. It's not easy to get to the game, and that's the biggest thing in our minds. So you've no worries there. And obviously, Euro 2016 was an absolutely phenomenal build-up to what ended up being a really, really strong tournament for Ireland, which is a rare thing. And as a performance itself, the team played in a way which I probably hadn't seen up to that point and haven't seen since. They played with a confidence. They dominated the game against what was a Swedish team, and came out of it with albeit only a point, but a result I think that gave us great optimism heading into the rest of the tournament. So for me, absolute standout away venue is Paris. But who knows what's going to replace that in future.
Good stuff. And least favourite, Nemo?
Yeah, least favourite, kind of, I guess, got to judge it on the same criteria, JP. And for me, it's the most recent away game that we've been to, which was Geneva. Although, yeah, it's easy to reach. It's not the best city for an away trip. The atmosphere around the place is not great. It's a very expensive city. So if you're staying there and you're not rich, you're bunking in a hostel with 6 lads snoring around you. So it's not the best experience. And the match itself was a really, really poor performance. We lost the game 2-0. We had our captain sent off. There's not really much else to say about it apart from that, really. The weather itself, I think it was piss and rain for the full 2 to 3 days that we were there. So although Switzerland's a beautiful country, and I'm sure Geneva would be a great place to bring your girlfriend, bring your wife, bring your partner, it's not, for me as a football fan, was not a great destination to go to.
It wasn't exactly cheap points either. And your away day story, Liam?
So away day stories, again, thinking long and hard about it, and again, what makes a great moment, and what's the whole point of all the trips we go on? And for me, it's the little things. So I don't have any one kind of main standout story to give, but it's the little things. And I think about France in particular as an all-round trip. 14 days across 4 cities, and all the little moments that happened, from arriving into Paris and meeting the Swedish fans outside Pigalle in the Harp Bar. Russia scoring an equaliser against England. We hadn't even kicked a ball yet in that tournament, and you've got 10,000 fans crowded around a tiny little Irish bar on Pigalle Strip, absolutely jammed for 3 days straight. And my only memory of that is England conceding a last-minute equaliser, and that was enough to set us off and build for a great few days. I think about being down in Bordeaux and meeting the Belgian fans after a really difficult loss, and singing until the end of the night. We actually had a really funny night that night where we ended up in a 24-hour darts club. I think it was about 6 o'clock in the morning. Me and another Irish fan with a group of Belgians and a couple of French inside a darts club, where we became honorary official lifetime members of the Bordeaux Darts Club. And I think I still have the card in my wallet. But these are the kind of the things that happen. The train journey from Bordeaux up to Paris to get on to Lille, I'll never forget. Traveling up on my own, and there was a kind of a crackle on the intercom over the train journey, and you're talking, TGV, super fast rail in France, surrounded by, the French who had little or no interest in the tournament, to be honest. And there's a cackling on the tannoy. It's the day after the Belgium game, and it just kind of slowly interrupts. The train driver says, sorry, je suis désolé, sorry for interrupting your train journey. And then he just starts playing Irish songs over the tannoy. And I'd say there was a handful of Irish people on the train. And he plays the full, dirty old town across the tannoy of the TGV train on the way to Paris. And at the end of it then, just a big thank you to all the Irish fans who came to France. For me, it's all these kind of little memories that make it worthwhile, make us so excited, I think, to get on another trip, to be honest.
Yeah, it was, it lived long in the memory. I mean, it's Poland for me was, the crack level was there, but because we actually performed in France, it did make it, a whole lot more special. And then we got the award as well. I think it was, we got some award at the mayor of Paris for the Irish fans,
Yeah, I think we did. It was just like, there were so many small things. I mean, I can remember walking down the street of Lille and seeing local French people wearing Irish jerseys, they weren't wearing Italian jerseys, they weren't wearing any other country's jerseys, they weren't even wearing French jerseys, but they were wearing Irish jerseys, because we obviously had a massive impact on the way they perceived, the travelling Irish fan and football in general, to be honest with you, because football can have a bad reputation in terms of the incoming away fans. So for me, that's, it's a reputation we uphold.
changed all
I
that,
think it's
Liam,
really
huh?
important. Exactly.
Yeah. Right, buddy. Thanks very much. All right, next up, we have a man who's walked more European cities than Google Maps, the legend, Hennessey. How you doing, Heno?
Hey man, hey John Paul, hey guys.
Good.
How's it going?
Right, Hennessey, been to a load of games, a load of cities. What's your favorite away venue?
It's always hard to kind of pick like a favorite or a least favorite, depending on your experiences and stuff. And obviously, it's not even remotely connected to even the result. It's the build up, it's the atmosphere. It's if you get a chance to see the city. That's why I always prefer like things like actually going to the tournaments, like the Euro in 2012 in Poland, in 2016 in France. Makes you really appreciate because you're there and every day is different. There's nothing really like it. Like you can go 2 weeks to a country on vacation, and it's just not the same as going and supporting your country in a tournament like that. It's just incredible, And every day something different happens. Meet different people. So if I had to pick one specific one, I've heard some of the guys there speaking earlier, and it's hard to disagree with any of what stuff that they've said. They've all put it really well. But I would have to go back to Poland again, just for the whole experience. Even going back there for their qualifier, or one day, it was the last match, I think. We lost 2-1.
Warsaw, yeah.
And it was in Warsaw. And that was pretty cool. I mean, didn't know what to expect. Never been to Warsaw before, but been to 2012, been to Gdansk, and of course the beautiful Sopa, which you guys were talking about earlier, which was terrific, and the camping and that, which wasn't. But like literally in a fucking towel instead of a proper tent. Boys had like these big Arabic type tents, you could fit like 100 people in. I was in a towel, shocking. But anyway, but then we found a hotel that had 51 rooms and 47 free. We were like, yeah, give us a room, bud. No matter. But going back to like Warsaw, has so much history to it, and myself and my friend Brian, who was there talking to him earlier. We went on the tours that you can do, and you go in and it gives the history of the city, and of course a lot of it's quite tragic and connected back to the Second World War and communism. And then you go at the end of that, you go to and there were so many fans I had, and the Polish people were always very welcoming, but also just going then to the stadium that night, fantastic stadium. The Polish created an incredible atmosphere. It was a tough game, really, for us. We were outbeaten and outplayed and everything like that. But for the match that I thought really connected, because sometimes with people back in Ireland, when they were looking at 2012, they're watching us getting hammered by the Spanish and singing, not realising that everyone was singing the fields of Athenry, not celebrating, but because it was an act of defiance. We were watching the football going, oh my God, this is shocking. We're playing something from Mars. They're playing, what the Spanish were playing at that time, which is the best football in the world. And it was terrible. I remember, what was your man's name who came on near the end? Trapattoni brought him on. I can't think of the guy's name. Oh, he was terrible. And I don't think it was McShane, it was someone else anyway. The Spanish would turn around to us in our seats going, who is this? Why is all the Irish groaning? And we're like, oh, because he's fucking useless.
Paul McShane, was it?
Yeah. I don't know if it was McShane, or maybe it was Green.
Edo's trying to tell you who it is.
Rob Green.
Green, yeah.
Okay,
Green, that
right.
was it.
Sorry to interrupt you there, Heno. By the way, folks, if you are listening, that crunchy sound is the sound of the Monster Munch being eaten by Steve in Amsterdam.
Yeah. Nice.
Still on.
Come on, Steve.
I came home with
Monster
I haven't had dinner yet. And I just remember the groans, like from the Irish fans when it came on, he was coming on. We were all like, oh, for God's sake, he just tried not to lose by 5-0 rather than what it was. But then we all started singing and everything. But it was a magical moment. And even like PK at Barcelona was saying, like when he was playing, after he said, wow, I never heard that kind of atmosphere that the Irish fans would create. But in Ireland, even Ray Keane, who was a pundit, I believe, he was like, what are they talking about? What are they singing? That was embarrassing. But it wasn't, we weren't singing to celebrate. We were singing just, here, we've got to zone out of this. This is depressing. And this kind of act of defiance. Like, just talking about Poland in general, just always enjoy going. But yeah, Warsaw, that stadium, the atmosphere, it was incredible. And it was an incredible day building up to it because it was very different before. It was going on history tours. It was just
something, I thought it was a little bit different than what we had done before. It wasn't just all about booze and that type of thing. Just going there. We did actually go watch Ireland against France in the rugby in this huge big bar, and then they start buffering and everyone start going nuts. And gosh, that was one that actually he couldn't find his tickets, kept going back and forth to his hotel taxi, walked for an hour, came back drunkenly, found him in his pocket. Well done, We won't remain nameless, but we all know who we're talking about.
Okay, right. You're going for Warsaw, Heno. But no, I do remember that Gdansk and the fields about the right at the end. I remember going into a Jack's in the soap pot, and a German guy came in. He seen me with a jersey, and he said, "You are on the German news." And I said, "Oh Jesus, what do we do now?" And he said, "Your fans are famous, yeah." But apparently, he went all over the place then. That the fields about right now. No, it was a beautiful stadium. I think they even had like free Wi-Fi in the stadium. It was one of the most modern stadiums I've been in. I think Richard Keogh had a chance at a header right at the end to make it 2-2, which would have actually qualified us. But we got there anyway.
Oh, true. Yeah. Good memory. Yeah.
Right. Your least favorite away venue, Heno. Least favorite away venue.
Well, the least favorite again. Hearing some of the stuff that the lads have said. Obviously, the stadium to Tbilisi in Georgia, the Olympic Stadium, and all that type of stuff. I mean, even going up to it, like there was no trouble, all right. So, but if there was going to be trouble, we would have been screwed because there was 300 Irish fans, thousands of them. All the police seemed to be were off that day, weren't working. I don't know where they were. They were all at a picnic or something. But we were just let to walk and random up streets. Next week, just ushered into the stadium. It was very odd. The stadium was ready to collapse any minute. We could barely even see the pitch. Good enough view for McGeady's goal, all right, which was a cracker, and that was cool. And there was no trouble. I'm not saying there was no trouble from the fans. It's an odd country, as the lads have said. The burger thing, 5 restaurants, all with menus, nobody working there, no chefs. Do you have burgers? No. Why? Do you advertise at your restaurant and you don't have food? Come in, have a drink. We don't want a drink. We drank enough, And then eventually finding the place. And as Brian said, found the place that you have burgers. McDonald's, the boys were checking how far it was. And that was, oh God. Okay, what you got to do? It was an amazing country. Like, you could not eat it. That was just the thing. You would end up starving the day. It's shocking. And you got to love their optimism. Even the paths, they weren't finished. That was brilliant. Where there was no lights. You just walked along a path, and then you'd see that night. Remember, I found the guy on the ground in bits and breaking his ankle, going, "Don't go any further, lads. Don't go. There's no bleeding. What the fuck?" Oh, really good. Yeah, it was a crazy country. I remember even sitting all the time thinking, like, this is madhouse. It just wasn't safe anyway.
Yeah, rough old spot, and the lads getting food poisoning from the hanger bar from the old chicken sandwich as well wasn't helpful.
Yeah, which we were wise enough not to eat. Remember, we looked at them and we just went, I don't think so. The boys were just, and then
savages.
They went from superpowers to holy moly, some sight in that room.
I'll never forget the McGeady goal though. The last kick of the game was out of this world.
It was fantastic.
In the turn, to win the game, which was super.
Shame he didn't do it enough.
Yeah, and Hennessey, you've been to a lot of games, a lot of trips all around Europe. You must have a juicy away day confession story.
Well, again, like some of the stuff has been covered there, but just going back to that thing with Lille again, but just when we scored, when we scored that goal against Italy and Brady, and just knowing that the euphoria that we were having, people back home were also having, compared to Gdansk 2012, great build up to that game against Spain, then Spain hammer us. People see us singing, go, what the fuck is that? And that type of thing, and then everyone's churning off while in Ireland, people watching the Ireland-Italy game in the pubs, And then I'd say a lot of them were wishing they were where we were at that very moment, watching that game. So it felt great to be there. But just thinking of kind of funny stories, I suppose coming back from Poznan after the Ireland-Croatia game, again, disappointing result. Croatia, another planet, we were piss poor. Stadium itself, the atmosphere is pretty good. But just on that train, we had two different experiences with trains. First experience was going to the match, going into the train station, pissing rain outside, having no clue where to go. Found some girl with the UEFA thing. She spoke very little English. She said, "Go this way, that way, and his way." We followed the big Kerry guy. People blamed me, but no, I was following him. Kerry, what name is his name? And we were going along, and before we knew it, we're on a train. Woohoo! And we're on a train, and we're the only people on the train wearing football jerseys. Everybody else is dressed with work clothes, heading home for the weekend on a train, leaving the city, heading to the countryside. When everybody else wearing a green jersey was heading to where we should be going, which was the stadium. Over an hour, everybody came up to us and said, "No, you're going to have to sleep out in the countryside." The conductor was like, "No." We got off at a train station. We were left there kind of stranded, not knowing what to do. One of our friends, Steve, he went over, started negotiating with police officers to rent out taxis, which were going to cost $250 each for the car. We were inside. Thankfully, as I said before, John Paul was able to converse in Russian. And this old lady who worked at the train station there, she was speaking Polish. She was no help. No. Then he started communicating with her. And then magically, taxis turned up, normal ones, that didn't want to charge $250 for each bloody car. And we got in. They drove like maniacs, like literally maniacs, driving up the road, opening and using, got us to the stadium. And there you have it. But on the way back, we were one of the most fortunate people on that stadium, heading back to Gdansk on a late night train after having to crack in the city, even though the match was disappointing. We had a cabin booked, had been pre-booked. It was all sorted. We were relaxed. 99% of the fans that appeared to us anyway on that train had nowhere to sleep, had nowhere to sit on this long journey, all hungover, all hungry, standing around, screaming and shouting the ball. We were trying to lock the doors. And one of our lads tried to be Florence Nightingale. He was going up and down. He was helping them out. He was stretching them, and he was coming in asking us, would we mind giving up our seats for an hour? So one guy could grab it. We were like, fuck off, And it was wild. It was a wild time out there. But I was very glad it was the fact we got back to Gdansk and we picked the right spot in Poland to base ourselves for that whole trip. Because as he said before, Gdansk, Sopot, the bars, the nightclubs, it's just incredible. And the way in which the Polish, welcomed us all there, cost of food, cost of drink, just fantastic. And even the time when we were in Sopot, we were kind of taking a day off and going around with all the other fans and just seeing some things, looking at some stuff, just enjoying some of the things you could do around Sopot, walking through the streets. And we were looking for someone to watch the England game. I think England were playing Germany, I think, wasn't it?
Sweden.
Germany. Yeah, it was a big game though for England that day. Anyway, in 2012, we were looking for someone to watch it. Every single sports pub was heaving. I mean, there was just drunk loons, and we were like, "Oh, I don't know if we can do that." Probably John Delaney is probably in amongst them buying a load of beer, And now that we all know, but anyway, as we were just walking along, we looked up, and we seen this kind of counter, this balcony that was there, and you could see huge screen TVs. So I decided, all right, just run in. So ran into the doors, ran up the steps, got up, spoke to this girl, said, "Hey, hi." I said, "Listen, can we just come up here and just have a few beers, watch the match?" And she was like, "We're not open." I said, "But the doors are all open." And this guy just come over, this young Polish guy, probably around the same age. He just came over and he just goes, "Hey." I said, "Yeah, look, man, me and my friend was downstairs, just walking. We just want to relax, chill, have a few beers, watch the match." "Yeah, cool. Tell your friends up." And we just sat there, relaxed, chilled, having a few beers, cool. And then later on, after the match was over, the girls come over to us. They're working away. I'm not really sure what's going on. Just lovely, cool room to ourselves and couches and relaxed. And it's like, this is deadly. Why the hell is nobody in here? The guy goes over and goes, "Oh, we are a nightclub. We're not open. You ran indoors. We were just cleaning and setting things up. We decided to let you because you're Irish." And we're like that. We're like, "All right. So do we have to leave?" And they're like, "Yeah, but you can come back later." And we came back later all dressed up, and they treated us deadly. Let's back up to the same area, and it was class. You couldn't recommend it. It's a shame I'd love to go back.
Good stuff, Heno. Right, brilliant stuff there, lads. Thanks a million. That is our first ever away day confessions on the Irishman, Englishman, Scotsman football podcast. Tune in, of course, every Sunday for a new episode. Thanks a lot, guys.
Okay.
Boys,
good luck.
JP,
Okay,
have it.
cheers.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
Thank you for listening. If you'd like to hear more of our podcasts, please click on the red subscribe button on the bottom right-hand side. Thank you.